Hello, my name is Jeremy. The other day in 1 Samuel chapter 25, I came across the story of a man called Nabal, his wife Abigail, and David, which, if I've read before, I must confess I've totally forgotten. It's a story I'd like to share with you, but it's a long story, so if it's okay, I'll summarise it. Before David was crowned king of Israel, he was on the run from the person who occupied that post before him, namely King Saul. One day, needing food, David sent some of his soldiers to this man called Nabal. And they said to him, "Look, we've done favours for you in the past. We've looked after your shepherds when they were on the hills. Can you supply us with some food and water, please? Any amount will be fine." However, Nabal not only refused to give them anything, but he hurled insults on them and on David and sent them away with a flea in their ear. When news got back to David about this treatment, it's fair to say he blew his top. And he decided, despite being an anointed servant of God, that the most suitable response for him was for him and 400 of his troops to put on their swords and to go and slaughter every man in Nabal's household. On the way, though, to this awful act, he was met by Abigail, Nabal's wife. She stopped David and said that certainly her husband had acted wrongly, but as a man of God, was it really for David to wreak revenge, or was vengeance something that rested with God? David reflected on this advice, decided she was right, and called off the attack. 10 days later, Nabal died. This pleased David for two reasons. The first was it showed he was justified in leaving the matter in God's hands. And secondly, it meant he could marry Abigail, which thing he did soon after. But listening to Abigail was a remarkable thing for David to do. After all, in his anger, he clearly knew he was right. He was in no doubt that what he had to do was go and slaughter all the men in Nabal's household. Moreover, he didn't ask for Abigail's help or advice. It was totally unsolicited. And she, being a woman, had low standing in society at that time. Worse still, of course, she was Nabal's wife, and so was the wife of someone who had insulted him. No one would have criticised David in the least if he'd cast Abigail aside and ignored her. And yet, to his credit, he didn't. He listened, he reflected, and he changed. Whilst I've never been on the warpath to butcher a whole household, how would I react if I got advice like that? There have certainly been times when the last thing I felt I needed was advice from anyone as to the action that I should take. But maybe that certainty was in my mind because I was seeing a situation through a red mist, and so my emotions were all skewed. Or maybe I wanted a specific outcome. Or maybe I just hadn't thought things through properly. And how would I have reacted if the advice had come from someone I didn't think qualified to give it? Maybe they were young, or not as informed in all the facts of the case, or from a different generation, and so I thought didn't understand my situation. We live very much in the age of the individual, where we are each our own decision makers and are proud to be so. Being corrected and so being told our decisions are wrong can sometimes seem like an affront to our intellect and our dignity and an infringement on our rights, and can often result in a prickly response. Dare I say, even Christians can adopt such attitudes when they are told in love but someone thinks their actions or their relationships are inappropriate, or maybe that they are misunderstanding some biblical teaching, for example. Yet, God puts us in fellowships, partly so that we can help each other stay on his paths. And one of the ways we can do that is by telling others when they've strayed off or set off in the wrong direction, and indeed by being told by others when we have done that too. Don't get me wrong, sometimes advice, whether unsolicited or not, can be way off the mark based on a failure to appreciate the facts or some other motive. However, what the story of David and Abigail shows us is sometimes, just sometimes, that advice can be bang on the nail. If ever anyone gives you such advice, may I encourage you to listen to it in a prayerful manner and reflect upon it, because it may just be God speaking to you. Amen.